wastewater treatment plant, Brainerd Public Utilities. As you can see here, there's a multiple of funding sources that do go into each of those projects. They vary from special assessments to potentially developer-paid special assessments or contributions towards project costs, as well as our 3 enterprise funds that contribute to some of the water, sewer, and stormwater improvements, and then our local sales tax, as well as the collector street fund that we levy for on an annual basis. In addition to that, we have seen a substantial increase in the amount of federal grants more recently, including 2026 here, being proposed on the 48 project, as well as state grants and municipal state aid is the MSA one in column Q there. Other local units of government payments, primarily in the form of county in the 2026 project for the trail project, and in 2027 anticipated with Sylvan Township's contribution towards their share of the trail project that's being done, the Southwest Baxter project. And then finally, the debt service levy that goes into play for any of the city costs for those that aren't covered by special assessments or those other funding sources. In addition to that, where there's city project costs related to that. So as I mentioned, starting to work through the various street-related projects, so and layering in those other projects as we have capacity. So for 2026, we do have the North Glendale, West Clearwater, Brentwood, the street and utility project that will over $7.4 million. That's being proposed right now. So a little bit loose. And then in addition to that, the various mill and overlay projects in the residential neighborhood totaling about $1.5 million, and then $1.6 million for the 48 trail projects. And then, as I mentioned, kind of layering in those other street projects, so we look at the various mill and overlays, FDRs, and the reconstruction streets, and as well as some other sensitive timely ones that are on the docket with federal and grants in particular. The Mississippi Overlook project, 2027, potentially 2028, and about a $60 million project has a little bit of contributions from the water and sewer that were identified for that project, as well as $5 million of federal and state grants, and then $250,000, as I mentioned earlier, for the share that's being paid for by Sylvan Township. And then on some of the various street rehab projects, in addition to the special assessments for the street portion of that, maybe some improvements or repairs more likely being done while we're in there working on the street. So you can see there's various water and sewer and stormwater costs that were identified as placeholders for that would be paid for by those various enterprise funds that will be incorporated into those various cash flows for those projects. So based on the preliminary review here too, and we're going to go through this in more detail with Public Works too, just to make sure that we have captured everything. Some things haven't changed, but about $10.5 million scheduled for this year. Proposed for 2027, about $19 million made up of some pretty significant commercial FDR projects potentially, as well as the Mississippi Overlook Park improvements. And in 2028, about $6.4 million, comprised of some residential FDR reconstruction projects and commercial. In addition to that, throughout this various trail repairs through the FDR and overlay process, included as placeholders. In 2029, we have about $2.6 million identified of various street rehab projects. In 2030, $8.5 million comprised of FDR projects, making up about 3/4 of that cost. 2031, $2.8 million. 2032, $3.3 million. At this point, no projects are scheduled for 2033, so that does provide some ability maybe to reshuffle some of those projects as we work through these further down, if necessary. In 2034, what $500,000 identified for an overlay on Way of the Road. So overall, over that time period, a little over $54 million of various street projects in addition to those two projects that are planned in the next year or so, with the Midvale project as well as the Citro Boulevard projects. Then there will be other items that will factor into that as well during that process. But you can kind of see this sources, I guess, for various projects then does tie back to our debt service, as I mentioned earlier. Just to provide a little bit more of a visual, some of the historical and at least the projection, I guess, based on debt that's been issued through the 2024 bonds, so it doesn't include any new bonds. Those bonds would be structured now, will be the next step in that process after identifying some of these projects. So we've kind of maintained a level debt service levy of about $1,076,000 on an annual basis. What that's done is as our tax base has increased, our debt levy 10, our capacity rate, which is a function of the debt service levy divided by our tax base, has dropped slightly. So you can kind of see in 2024, which would be an actual figure, it was a little over 6%. In 2026, it's scheduled to drop to about 5.69%. So it's kind of going down slowly as we've maintained that even debt service levy as our tax base has increased during that time. So obviously, as projects are paid off or debt is paid off, there would be some additional capacity in that. So you can kind of see, we see a slight reduction in 27, and then a more significant reduction through 2035. However, that doesn't include the layering in of this debt that we kind of went through previously with some of those projects. But it does provide some additional capacity of anywhere from about 226,000 up to about 700,000 by 2035 to provide additional debt towards some of those projects. And that just kind of shows it more from a visual perspective. Again, level $1,076,000 for the last 3 years. And then just based on the outstanding debt through the 24 issue, which was the last bond issue we had, that debt does start to fall off. The orange line does show then the tax capacity portion of that. So you can kind of see that's dropping from about 6% down to about 1.8% before we later head back into some of those other projects with new debt that will be issued in the future for those projects. The other item I wanted to share with you is what kind of goes into calculating some of that debt capacity. So for each bond issue, we have a track special assessments for each of those balances that come in and are paid on an annual basis. So that's the first columns there would be the balances of the various projects that make up, in this case, it's the 2024 bond issue, and then the special assessment balance. So we can kind of monitor how much delinquent assessments we have outstanding, and if there's a need for additional levy capacity for that to cover those bond payments. And then when you look at kind of more of the revenue side of it, there would be the principal from those various bond issues. You can see in 2024, the South Forest View project, 24 FDR, overlay projects, some other various assessments that we had related more specifically to the Forest View project. And then the other third major one in that year was the 77 utility project. And then in addition to that principal that's being paid on the special assessments, there is a interest factor on the special assessments that are being paid. And then from that, we determine the amount of debts or property tax levy as necessary to maintain a certain coverage ratio, as well as make sure we have adequate resources to be able to pay those bonds. And then there's some interesting headers that are not mosaic fund because it's a debt service fund. And then on the expenditure side, obviously the principal debt issue and debt interest payments that are being made on those outstanding bonds. So kind of tracking an ending balance of the cash, I guess, in each of those debt service funds, with the ultimate goal that we would get near zero towards the end of the bond issue. What we've historically done that too is any bond balance that's in that bond issue, then we roll into another bond issue to help fund that one moving forward too, so that we can maintain positive rating with rating agency, because we do have strong coverage ratios in our debt service. So with that, we do have this, as I mentioned, from each of the bond issues, and then that is summarized to determine kind of the amount of debt service payments that, or excuse me, the debt levy that's necessary to cover those bond payments, and we'll build that out for the various other bond issues based on those projects that we alluded to earlier, as well as any other ones that would have debt issues with those projects. In addition to the cash flow that's done for the debt service fund, we do cash flows for the sales tax to track that, as well as each of the cash flows that are put together more on an operating basis with our utility funds. As we've kind of gone through those in some of the prior budget years, that kind of helps set our rates. We determine what those coverage ratios need to be if there's debt outstanding with those various bond issue enterprise funds. Currently, we don't have any debt outstanding specifically to a enterprise fund. We did have larger than planned bonds that were paid off a couple of years ago, but so the coverage ratio isn't just important there, but just obviously making sure that we have adequate reserves to be covering not only operations, but also future replacement of various meters. So that's just kind of a summary, kind of where we're at. The next steps, like I mentioned, we'll kind of work through this with Public Works to make sure that these projects are covered, as well as later in some of those other projects and some of the things that have changed more specifically with some recent changes with the overpass project and some of the other items too, and trying to factor those in and schedule those into overall sources and uses. Come back and kind of go through that too and look at how that impacts the overall levy, as well as rates and impacts of those costs.
Where to go from here, Brad?
Well, obviously, we wanted to illustrate kind of at the request of council asking where we were in the process. Utilizing tonight to kind of give you an update where we're at, what still needs to be done, and kind of let you know we're working on it in that context. If there are questions that you have along the way, would appreciate that, and we'll get you the answers in that regard. Jeremy, really is redoing cash flow. We're looking at this and then incorporating the sewer and water side. That remains correct.
Right. Yeah, and we're doing that kind of in conjunction as we close out the year too. So we're updating those based on 25 year-end numbers.
I'm trying to give you a snapshot of time.
You had a copy of that? What you're showing us?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Yeah, it would be good to get copies of this. It's always the smallest print
Yeah.
possible for a computer.
This has a big water mark of
Draft.
Yes.
I want to go word size. All right, thank you. I have a motion to adjourn the workshop.
So moved.
Motion by Nick,
Second.
second by 7, a time to begin our council meeting. We welcome you at the roll call show. We are all here. I'd ask you to rise to recite the Pledge of Allegiance with us.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you and welcome. Any additions or changes to the agenda, Brad, besides what you've given us here?
Yes, so just for note on the record, we have one item removed, that's item 18, the third item in closed session. That will be moved to be March 17th. Then we have two additions. One is on consent. That RCA is in front of you. That is, the agenda item reads, appoint Matthew Duck to the IT GIS Director position at grade 19, step 5 of the non-union employee schedule. The other one is a last minute one that is a closed session. That reads that the city will meet in closed session pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D05, subdivision 3B, for an attorney-client privilege discussion to discuss Crow Wing County District Court File 18CV 243003.
Okay, thank you. Have any written public comments, Brad?
Received none, Your Honor.
Any public comments here tonight from the audience? Come on forward, give us your name and address. Hear what you got to say.
Thank you. Good evening, Mike Duval. I'm at 468 Tyrol Drive in Brainerd. I'm looking forward to sharing some thoughts with you later on in your agenda. You'll be making some appointments to an advisory committee for aesthetics on the Highway 371 project. And my comment leading up to that group convening would be asking you to think carefully about the amount of lighting that's going to be needed for this highway project. And if you can consider a lighting standard, a color standard for what lighting will be on the corridor there. If all of the roundabouts don't need to be well lit, obviously the main corridor, the intersections. If you can think about similar to what the city of Brainerd has done with their outdoor lighting ordinance, mandating a color of not to exceed 3,000 Kelvin, which is sort of that transition from the warmer colors to the very bright daylight blue colors, which will really have a tremendous impact on your sky and reflectivity and the brightness that this place will glow. So that difference being that warmer color is not going to quite give you that sky blast and the reflectivity in the lighting around beyond the target areas, and not add to sort of the challenge of light pollution in our neighborhoods. Tyrol Hills, as a Brainerd resident, we're right close to the Baxter Drive city boundaries, right? So that has an impact on a high night sky. It's challenging enough as we have the strip malls and things, but if we can manage this particular piece here, what's going in, I think that would be a tremendous consideration and recommendation, and whether that complies with MnDOT standards, I think it's an opportunity for the city to be able to try and lean in a little bit to get something that's still, the lighting will provide the safety in the 3,000 Kelvin area, but it won't necessarily be as much of an impact on your residents and neighboring residents. So that would be the comment that I would offer you, and I appreciate your consideration of that tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Looks like that's probably it then, huh? So we will, thanks for sharing that, Mike. We will move forward with the consent agenda. The following items are considered non-controversial by staff and are recommended to be read and passed in one motion. Any council person, staff, citizen, or meeting attendee can request one or more items be pulled from the consent agenda. Any item will be pulled and addressed immediately after the passage of the consent agenda. Otherwise, the following items will be passed approve the city council work session minutes from February 17th, 2026. Number 2, approve the city council minutes from February 17th, 2026. Number 3, approve the payment of bills and finance report. Number 5, repeal the sick leave donation policy. Number 5, approve the reappointment of Robert Derrick and Rock Ulanimi to 3-year terms on the Cemetery and Utility Commission, respectively. Number 6, accept Storesville grant awards to the police department. Number 7, approve the purchase of easement for parcels 400200631 for the 2026 Clearwater Road North Mindale area and Brentwood Circle Street and Utility Improvements Project. Number 9, adopt resolution 2026-019, rescinding resolution 2026-008, and authorizing state aid advancement of municipal state aid funds for the 2022 Trunk Highway 210 Inglewood Drive Road Project Improvement Project, the 2025 Design Road and Trunk Highway 371 Stormwater Improvements Project, the 2026 County State Aid Highway 48 Trail Connections Project, Trunk Highway 210 Project. And we're adding number 9, the appointment of Matthew Duck to our IT position also.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Zach. Second by Cross. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 9, vacate a drainage and utility easements between the singular easement between lots 10 and 11, Block 1, Wildwood.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. This is a request to vacate easements that relates to administrative lot consolidation on Eagle Ridge Drive. So the request is to hold a public hearing and then consider adoption of resolution 2026-010.
Council, any questions of Josh? We'll open the public hearing at 7:10. Anybody here to address that? Close it at 7:10. Bring it back to the council. Look for a motion. Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Cross, second by Lucille. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And number 10, approve the appointments of the Highway 371 Overpass Visual Quality Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Mayor. As council is aware, with municipal consent being considered approved related to the Highway 371 overpass project, the next part of our participation is through the Aesthetics Committee, which is officially titled the Visual Quality Advisory Committee. We are looking to appoint this advisory group to represent the city as it works with MnDOT and its consultant in identifying the aesthetic components related to the overpass project. The committee is tentatively scheduled to meet monthly from mid to late March through September, when MnDOT has to reach a target of 60% design as of the end of September. At your meeting on February 17th, administration requested council to submit names that city staff would reach out about serving on the aesthetics committee. Included in your packet are a list of individuals who I have spoken to and have agreed to serve on the committee. I do want to point out that there was one additional that came via email over the weekend. I provided that email. The gentleman's name is Chuck Anderson. In that regard, and as previously mentioned, Councilmember Cross has expressed interest in serving the committee. After considered council direction and conversation with MnDOT and the consultant, we would be looking to have administrator, or myself and community development director serve as ex officios on that. Not being voting members or things of that nature, but be there for technical advisement and to be part of those conversations. So looking for the council to have discussion related to the names that have been provided to you, and looking for, at the conclusion of that discussion, for council to appoint the aesthetics committee.
I just want to note I'm appreciative of the interest of the proposal and put their names and accepted the offer. Sort of thing.
I appreciate the council members that came forward with, I didn't know if that would happen or not.
I sent one, but she declined.
Yeah. And anyway, yeah, then, Brad, it took a lot of time for Brad to contact everybody and put a lot of time and effort into that. And they did all accept, so I think that's a very good indication that we'll move forward, at least in that part, with a positive reaction, I guess, so. So I'd like for a motion to accept these names.
So moved.
Motion by Alessio,
I'll second that, but I have a question.
Sure, are we adding Chuck Anderson?
yeah, good point. So we have a second with the understanding that we're adding Chuck Anderson to that. He emailed me Saturday night. He, as it says there, he had applied for a planning zoning commission spot a while back. Really, really qualified at the time. We had somebody else we thought was maybe a little more qualified, and so he's kept his record on file here. He responded immediately Saturday when he saw it in the paper, and so I think it'd be excellent. I think he's highly qualified with his background there. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. All same sign. Motion carries. Okay, we're on to council comments.
I have no comment.
Okay, Devin.
I have a couple here. I did want to express general agreement with the public comment regarding the lighting. Not necessarily just 371, but just long term, looking at the street lighting that we offer in the city. I don't have opinions regarding specific numbers or things like that, but looking at ways that we can minimize the light pollution that we create, I think would be a good thing overall. So I would generally agree with the concerns of the commenter tonight. And then I just wanted to offer a idea that I'd like to put to the Planning and Zoning Commission to study finding a way to create something like what I would describe as an R1B zoning district, something slightly more dense than what we currently have at the R1A level, just as an opportunity for developers to create the kind of housing that I think people would appreciate, having the opportunity for houses on smaller lots that cost less to run sewer and water in front of and run their sewer and water lines from the road to the house. So I have general ideas there that I won't bore the group with here tonight, but would ask if the council would support me in asking Mr. Doty to take to the Planning and Zoning Commission the assignment to study something in the R1B range, to offer something slightly higher density that's still single family. And I would offer in that with the possibility potentially of only allowing duplexes in that as a halfway between single family and our multifamily districts. That's my comment for tonight, but I guess asking you if you want to shoot me down right here and now, that's okay, but if you allow for that, I'd like to push that to them.
I would support that.
Do you have any thoughts on like accessory dwelling units, like the mother-in-law cottages or things like that? Like how would that?
I'm generally in favor of exploring that. I don't know, that would be something I'd want them to study if it would fit in R1B. I think we have a lot of our larger lot units. I've expressed, I'll just say publicly, expressed to staff before the idea that like my neighborhood, the driveways are long enough that I think a small mother-in-law cottage or the ADU could be put in front of some of those houses and no one would even notice. So I think there's room for it. It just would have to be properly studied. I'm in favor of the concept.
What would be the difference between a tiny house that are very popular versus an ADU, or are they the same?
It's the same, right?
It could be, yeah. I think it's a fine line that the staff would probably want to define.
you know, several people in our age group were having a conversation a few nights ago about if we would all men moving to a tiny house if it was in our neighborhood in Baxter.
With your kids.
No, not necessarily my husband either. Just kidding.
What'd you say?
Yeah, I put that in the paper.
Put it down on the front page.
Maybe it is,
December
is it
27th.
What you realize? What you meant by that was,
Might need 2 tiny houses.
are we okay with that, or sure, moving forward? Okay, great.
Thank you.
Patrick, sorry.
I wanted to echo the land pollution comment. Thank you for that. That's great. Especially as we think forward to, you know, this is potentially the first large overpass intersection that we have in Baxter, and there's already plans and kind of workings to do something similar, not to this level, but at College Drive and possibly Oakwood at some point to have multiple overpasses. So that's something that we have to think of as going forward. We're going to be setting a lot of precedents on this so that when and if there's additional overpasses that are established on 371 through Baxter, that we can kind of be consistent throughout.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. Mark?
I have nothing tonight, thank you.
The only thing I got is, remember, our week is not over. We got to come back here on Thursday, so I hope to see you all join me.
That's only one to open that, right?
What's that?
Only one person to open that,
Need
right?
4 to close it, though.
Carry me out.
Mr. Administrator?
Yeah, well, you took the one item, which is the improvement hearing on Thursday. Other than that, we do have 3 items under attorney's report that are all closed session items. For those that are listed, 2 of those are to go into closed session under subdivision 3C, or subdivision 3C, regards to purchase of real estate, per parcel IDs that are outlined in the agenda, and then related to that is adopting resolution regarding eminent domain in those negotiations. And then the last one is to go closed session under 13E05, subdivision 3B, related to attorney-client privilege to discuss the growing district court file number that I previously provided, and will provide to the media upon closing the open session.
Motion to close the open the close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so that ends the regularly scheduled council meeting. Thanks for coming. Give you the boot.
Not the first time.
You're used to that. Thank you.
Thank you much.